executive director of All of Us, and tonight's special plug-in, speak up community conversation hosted by City Council President Carl Williams and All of Us, with our very special guest, Chief Whipple, to talk about policing in the city of Schenectady. The way this is gonna work is we're gonna open the floor for Chief Whipple to make an opening statement. There will be an opportunity for folks to ask questions. You can either write it on one of the giant, very flimsy index cards that are on chairs. There's also extra ones over on the table. There's bottles of water if you're thirsty. There's an information table with resources. We'll talk about that again later. We do ask that folks that ask questions be concise. We want to be able to answer as many questions as possible. So what we say in organizing is land the plane, don't circle the runway. Get to your point so that as many people can be heard. Let's be mindful of our voices. Whatever it takes for you to be here, you may have other obligations. You may have children or loved ones that you're caring for. You may need to be able to take a call. I just ask that you step out so that other people can hear what's happening. And use your outside voice when you're speaking. We are recording. We're only facing us. So as long as you stay behind the camera, no one sees you. But we do want to be able to make sure that if there are any questions that we need to follow up, because we may not have the answers to everything tonight, but we've all made a commitment that whatever questions get asked will get answered. If not this evening, we will follow up. But with that, I want to start with brief introductions, and I will pass it to my co-host, Carl Williams.
So thank you. Thank you everyone sincerely for being here tonight. My name is Carl Williams. I'm the Schenectady City Council President, and I have to acknowledge another elected in the room, Councilman Justin Chair, is sitting in the back. Thank you for being here. How this got started sincerely was a brainchild that Jamaica and I thought of together, and it was how do we have these types of discussion forums where we address the issues that matter to the community. And I think if you're from Schenectady, if you live in Schenectady, if you're of Schenectady, you recognize that there's no singular network to get information. So rather than continuing to point out what doesn't exist, truly Jamaica is about our business, and that's doing the work of the city of Schenectady. We created this. So what this represents is a forum where we can have intimate dialogue. And it is not to mean that we are going to agree on everything. It's not to mean that we're going to come up with all the solutions to all the world's problems. What we've identified is that we can have an intentional moment where we continue to see each other as human beings and have that mutual respect. We can accomplish a lot. And oftentimes there's a lot of misrepresentation or misinformation out there. So rather than talking about what doesn't exist, how do we be about something that's more collaborative and productive for our community? So I sincerely am appreciative a lot for what Chief Whipple's presence here is, and I continue to be indebted to Jamaica and what all of us represents in our community. I think a lot of people leave with different interpretations of why they exist and what purpose do they serve. Sincerely, disruption and keeping important information and topics at the forefront is a vital role in change. It is, but what also is a necessary component is having these types of exchanges where we talk about things at the table. So again, thank you for being here tonight. It means a lot to me, and I will pass it off to Chief Whipple.
Very much. I just want to thank Carl and Jamaica for the invitation. Carl, Council President Williams invited me shortly after I got sworn in. He said, "Would you be willing to?" Actually, that day, I think, she said, "Would you be willing to come to a community dialogue?" And I said, "Absolutely. So let me know when and where." He gave me a date. Unfortunately, it didn't work for me. It was a Sunday, I believe. I had to go out of town for my daughter's dance. Then he came up with this date. He said, "Could you come?" I said, "Absolutely." So I appreciate you making that work for me. And he said, "Can I come?" I said, "Absolutely, appreciate it." So thank you very much for making this work. And I look forward to the time.
The one thing I forgot to lift up, and it is super important. So Thursdays for all of us are an important evening. They're the evening that all of us women meets every single Thursday. And we would not have been able to have this event tonight if all of us women was not willing to co-sponsor and give up their night for us to be able to be here. It is an amazing group that leads a lot of the work that all of us does. And so to all of the men in the room, we appreciate you, but to everyone else, this is how we get things done. But the part that we really want to lead with is we want you to be able to introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you, Brian Whipple? What is your mission and vision for the Schenectady Police Department? What does that mean for you?
Okay. Yeah, so a little about me. I've been with the Schenectady Police Department a little over 17 years. A little history, everyone starts at the Schenectady Police Department in patrol. So I started patrol on midnights for about 4 years before I was promoted to a supervisor on midnights for another 4 years. And then I went to a detective sergeant in internal affairs. I was there for a short time before I went to I was promoted to a lieutenant, which then oversaw the afternoon shift for a short time. And then I went to the day shift for a short time. And then I went to the traffic unit before eventually taking over as the assistant chief of the whole patrol unit in traffic. And then the last 3 years I spent in the Administrative Services Bureau, which oversees the fleet, the budget, the finances, some of the human resources and all that stuff, kind of boring backroom stuff where I spend in the office most of the time. For my leadership style, over the last few years and actually over my career, I've learned a lot from some of the people before me and from outside experiences. Leadership is not about the rank, but it's about responsibility. It's about setting the example and making tough decisions, always putting the mission first and the community. As chief, I view the role as not a position of authority, but as a position of trust. Trust from our officers, trust from city leaders, and most importantly, trust from the residents that we serve. The mission is clear: protect life and uphold the law. But how we carry out that mission matters just as much as the mission itself. We must continue to strengthen relationships with our community. This is the most important part of the whole thing about to speak on. But public safety is most effective when it's built in partnership, transparency, and mutual respect. That's the bottom line of my whole speech tonight, but I'm gonna continue on for a few more minutes here. My view on the law enforcement as a whole. The challenges facing law enforcement today are complex and constantly evolving. Public expectations continue to grow, and scrutiny of our profession is higher than ever. But I firmly believe that challenge creates opportunity. It pushes us to grow, to improve, and move the profession forward with integrity and purpose. I also recognize that fulfilling our responsibility is not without difficulty. Budget constraints test our staffing and our ability to expand important programs. And as far as my key priorities, I broke it down into 4. First is our people. Our officers and staff are our greatest assets. We must ensure that they receive the training, equipment, support necessary to perform their duties safely and effectively. Policing is physically, mentally, and emotionally challenging. Taking care of our people ensures that we can take care of the community effectively. We need to recognize that the honor of wearing a uniform comes with responsibility of seeking help when needed. A lot of our issues we can discuss come from when we don't take care of ourselves, take care of our officers. That can lead to issues. Second, professionalism and accountability. We will hold ourselves to the highest standard of conduct. Accountability is not a burden, it is standard foundation of public trust. When we make mistakes, we will and need to address them quickly. When we succeed, we will build upon that success. Third is community engagement. Policing cannot be done from behind a desk or solely from behind the wheel of a patrol car. It requires presence and listening. We will continue to engage together to address the root causes of crime and disorder and not just the symptoms. We will continue to strengthen and expand our Schenectady Cares, Schenectady Hub, and Community Outreach Team as part of proactive community-based policing. We recently renewed the partnership with Northern Rivers. They're moving into our basement, the police department, so that we can have more co-responders, as well as a behavioral case manager that I was lucky enough to get a grant for through the COPS initiative, and then we'll be having another co-responder that's going to work the afternoon shift so that we can put clinicians side by side to connect individuals with appropriate services quickly. And last but not least, we are reducing our response times and looking at our processes with purpose and honesty. We will identify opportunities to streamline procedures, reduce unnecessary administrative burdens, and better leverage technology so our officers can spend more time serving the community. We are currently evaluating how we deploy our resources using real-time data, and that's something I can discuss if we have time at the end, how we're doing that. It's pretty awesome. And before I finish, just one more quick thing. I would like to finish with a message that I read directly to my team the day that I got sworn in, just to kind of explain a little bit more about my leadership and what I expect of them. Leadership does not rest solely with the command staff. Every supervisor, every officer, every civilian employee is a leader. The example you set through your professionalism, your fairness, and your compassion defines who we are as an agency. I ask you to continue striving for excellence and to treat every person with dignity and respect. Remember that behind every call for service is someone experiencing one of the worst moments of their life. When the job feels heavy, remember why you started, the excitement of being selected, the pride of putting on the uniform, the determination to make a difference. Leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about listening, learning, and surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to be better. I commit to leading with transparency, fairness, and determination, and I will support you. To our community partners and city officials, I look forward to strengthening our collaboration. Public safety is a shared responsibility. Our city succeeds when people feel safe, heard, and included. Thank you for letting me open up.
Absolutely. And I'm absolutely going to blow up your spot when you said, yeah, I don't need that much time, so you can just add my time to Q&A.
That was longer than I thought.
It wasn't that long. It wasn't. Trust me, as someone who talks a lot, that was not a long time. And we talked about with you previously, there are certain topics that repeatedly have come up within the community that we've heard about. We're going to mention 3 of them. You've got a couple things that you can share with us about at least 2 of them, and then we open it up to Q&A. And Q&A isn't just the way that I run it. It's not just questions and answers. If y'all have comments, concerns, interactions, things that you want to share, it doesn't have to be I have a question, I'm looking for an answer. This is an opportunity for us to share information in whatever format that looks like. But the things that we've heard about, in no particular order, what is or isn't the interaction between Schenectady Police Department and ICE, right, immigration. There's also the concern about filing complaints with the police department. What does that look like? What is that supposed to look like? I know that you brought some information to share this over on the resource table. And those were the 2 big ones, unless I'm missing something else.
I know that there were pedestrian safety and then noise ordinance. I think everyone that lives in Schenectady is probably nodding their head internally, if not physically. Just
But if we could start with ICE, go to the complaint process, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So the ICE is the big topic and probably the easiest for me to address because we do not have an agreement with ICE. So when ICE comes to town, they do not let us know that they're in town. They do not tell us when they leave town. They do not let us know who they interact with. At no point in time do they have any communication with us that say they're having an operation here, they're having an operation there. There's no interaction between us and them. I know that sometimes there's Facebook groups out there. There's different people saying there's ICE here, there's ICE there, but we do not have any contact with them. There's no one has told us ever that they've gotten that they've taken anybody. There was one call, somebody came out and said they know there's somebody at the courthouse here or there, and they tried to follow up this and nobody could figure out what was going on because we had no information for it. So we have no knowledge whatsoever of any specific people being picked up, targeted, or anything for this.
Thank you for saying that part out loud. Some folks in the room have heard me say that already, and what I've said is I really wanted you to be able to say that as the police chief. One of the resources over on the resource table is information from the Capital Region Sanctuary Coalition. All of us is a member of that coalition where we offer support to immigrant and migrant families. We do rapid response. If there is a call, if someone sees ICE or they think they see ICE, they're able to reach out in different ways and we do respond. So there is a support system, but really, folks still believed that the police department was in some way involved or that they might be, so hearing that from you is super important.
And then a follow-up, if you don't mind. I know you said that's where the current state is now. Do you envision that changing at any point? And is that based on just the limits of what mission they're trying to support? What I mean by that is, if there's like a more community-based approach to that, is there a possibility that they can enlist the Schenectady Police Department?
So right now, there's been no discussion of it. We are not, we're going to follow New York state laws. I know that the governor is trying to restrict anything going on. I don't think that the local council and the local mayor is going to support anything that's going to have us do anything that's going to change anything that we're doing now. I'm personally not going to try to change anything now. There's admitted, I know that you're probably going to be better versed in this than me, but there's the difference between criminal and then the administrative stuff. The administrative stuff we're just not allowed to do, period. We're not allowed to legally, and we're not interested at all. I mean, there's no reason for administrative stuff. But we're not asking anybody their immigration status, so we want, if you are a victim of a crime and you are here, we want you to call us. We're not going to ask you your immigration status, so people need to call us and let us know that they're a victim of a crime. We don't want anybody to feel they can't call us because they're here. So.
And I'll just point out, there's a difference between the Schenectady City Police Department and the county sheriff. We're talking to the Schenectady City Police Department. It would require a separate conversation to find out what is or isn't the interaction with the sheriff's department at the county level. I know some folks in the room, we got questions, but I appreciate you talking about that. And when we get to Q&A, if folks have other follow-up, please chime in. But let's move right along. Filing a complaint.
Yes, filing a complaint. So, plenty of ways to do it. There's packets that are on the table. You can do it through the mayor's office. You can do it through there's a website through the CPRB. You can do it through the NAACP. And I'm not sure if there are, our website has it as well. And I'm not sure if there's any other places that have the actual packets. We just updated them recently. There were some changes made by the city council to make it so that change the wording a little bit to make the package sound a little bit more friendly, a little bit, I guess, less scary looking. That's when you want to file a complaint. Once you fill out the packet to the best of your ability, you don't have to fill out everything. You can also call the police department just to give us whatever wording, whatever information that you have. If it's you have the officer's name, you just have the location. A lot of times people don't have the officer's name. They were too quick, it may have been dark out. Just whatever information you can provide us, the more the better. The date and the time is usually enough to let us get a head start on what it is and what the complaint is. We can usually work from that. And then from there, it gets assigned to one of our professional standards people. Right now we have two. We have a captain and a sergeant that's in charge of professional standards. They will start the investigation. Depending on how backed up they are, they also do the hiring for the police department. So sometimes it does take a little bit. My new thing is I want everything done in a month. If it's a very complex or multiple, sometimes sometimes people wait till they say there's 3 or 4 interactions with the same officer, and it takes a little while for us to get all the information, so it might take a little bit longer than that. And they're not gonna make excuses, but sometimes there have been incidents where the complaints have taken longer than that. But my new priority is a month. I did sign off on several that were much longer than that in the last month, so CPRB is going to be busy coming up. Those are open to the public, so if you have any interest in going to those, I think the next one is going to be May 12th, I think, where you can hear the full case and you can hear the outcome of, they read the case, the officer's name, and the civilians and witnesses' names are redacted, so you can't hear who it is, but you can hear the gist of what the case is. You can hear if the officer was exonerated, if the case was sustained, or what actually happened to the case. Once that is done, once the CPRB either agrees or disagrees, sometimes there's back and forth. The CPRB might not like the wording of it, they might want some more information. Once they agree or disagree, and then the case is concluded, then the original complainant of it is sent a letter signed by the chief of police that lets them know either, yes, we found that your complaint was sustained, we found that the officer did do something wrong, and we apologize, and there's going to be discipline involved. We don't let them know what the discipline is, but we do say there's going to be discipline, or we kind of give a slight reason of why we found that they were sustained, or why it was they were exonerated. So we'll say, we're sorry that we felt this way, but they were following policy, and we kind of give a little bit more of a reason why we think that they followed it, just a little bit of closure to it. The discipline can range from, actually not discipline, more of like a training issue where the officer receives more training. It can be a policy change where we, as a department, need to do something differently, where there's a training where our policy falls short. Even though we are a accredited agency, sometimes we find things in our policies that need to be updated, which something recently on the complaint process, we found that we needed to update just one little word, but we updated that. And then it can lead to suspension where they're given time off or they're not paid, or they can give up their vacation days, or a memo of counseling memo. So that goes on, and it's usually progressive, or can lead to their firing as well.
Now, if I can interject, I think the perception is that the police investigating themselves kind of presents this perception of we're going to take care of our own. And what the chief didn't highlight, but I would ask for you too, is every complaint is investigated, whether it's completely submitted or not. And what I would like to tack onto the back of that is, could you envision a system where some of those disciplinary elements that are redacted could be shared with the community? Because I think what happens is, because there's no transfer of information, the assumption is nothing happened, when in actuality that might not be the case. So first part, kind of speaking to every complaint is treated fairly and equitably, but then also, do you envision a new system where there could be a better transference of after action matters?
Yeah, so I think there is a way now. I think the law is actually switched where I think we can now.
Repeal 50A.
Yeah.
Which was something, so previously there was no option for any information on the disciplinary actions against officers to be shared with the public. It was something that was fought for at the state level. It was something that came to light very much here in the city of Schenectady a few years back, where the piece that is at issue is we can request it and you can't tell us no. But I think to Carl's point is, what would that look like if it was a report on some regular basis that showed, here's the number, because I'm looking at your paper, that here's the number of complaints that happened, here's how many were founded, here's how many were exonerated. Like, what does that potentially look like? Of course, I've got other questions about the whole cops and investigating cops, but I think if that's where you were going, like, how do we have transparency that doesn't rely on the public to want to ask, but that instead you're forthcoming on some regular basis?
So this report, I'm very open to sharing without asking for it. I mean, I give this out regularly. This is the first time we've actually compiled it. So I asked for it for today's meeting. It's the first time it's been done since I've ever seen it. As far as the specific disciplines, I think that's maybe where Carl was coming from. I'm not quite sure how that actually works, because the union they have to. I'm sure they're going to fight it, but so I don't know if they can actually, how they actually can fight it because of the 50A. As far as the number of complaints, the generic complaints, I can release this, so I don't have a problem with that. I can do this, I can do this right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd like to give an example, my assistant was handing me a question from the audience. Because as a reminder, you can write questions, you don't have to ask. An example of kind of like what that looks like for the information you already have.
Okay, so in 2025, civilian complaints, So there's two different types of complaints. There's internal complaints and civilian complaints. This is just on the civilian complaints. So a lot of times somebody might complain that they were that they felt disrespected or discourtesy. So we had 4 discourtesy complaints. We had 1 sustained, 3 exonerated discourtesy complaints. But with that, we also could mean that we could have a sustained policy violation. So that somebody may have felt that they were discourtesy complaint, and during that complaint, that's maybe the only thing they complained about. But when we reviewed it, we actually found more complaints. So a lot of times, that's usually what happens. Sometimes what people complain about isn't what they actually get in trouble for, they get in trouble for something else. So that's usually what happens with the policies. The use of force complaints. Last year we had 8 people complain about use of force. We had 2 sustained, 4 exonerated, 1 unfounded, and 1 not sustained. 1 unfounded means that we couldn't get enough information from, say somebody, either anonymous person gave us some information, we couldn't get it, or not sustained. And we had 6 policy violations, 1 procedure violation, and 1 discourtesy violation. And then we had 2024, we had 16 complaints. And 2017 or 2023 we had 9 complaints, and in 2022 we had 17 complaints. So obviously a big uptick in 2025. So we went from 17, 9, 16, 26. So that's a big uptick.
And so these are the numbers that actually come into the police department in some form, whether it is a written complaint or a verbal complaint that's called in. There is some official capture of the complaint.
Yes, this is an official, either verbal or written. So this is somebody calling, leaving us a voicemail even. They fill out a form, they call the mayor's office, they call the chief's office. Somehow, some way, this is an actual complaint that gets put in through some mechanism. They could also come in now. There's the Attorney General's has the Lemio. So if you don't want to come into the police department, you can actually file a complaint with the Attorney General's office, and then those get funneled from them. Those come to us as well afterwards. So then we have to report back to the Attorney General's office the findings. So they kind of keep an eye on it as well. So it's just another set of eyes as well. So if you feel that you're not getting the service that you, or if you've been complaining to us and you're not happy with that, it's just another service that they kind of look at it as well from them.
And one of the things that Carl and I can do is email out to the, 3,000 people in the city of Schenectady that we have email addresses, these different ways that they can file complaints, because I don't think Carl would disagree. Part of the problem is folks don't know like how to file their complaints beyond the not believing that filing the complaint is going to get them any justice. But part of it is not even knowing what that process looks like at all, or that the form has been updated, because the form was an issue. It was indeed an issue.
And then Jamaica will be modest, but she was a part of that update, and that's why it's important to make sure, as Chief highlighted, as we're doing these changes, making sure that we're including the community, because something reads very differently to me than it does to Chief Whipple, than it does for Jamaica and all of us. And if we don't acknowledge that, then we're never going to get past some of these barriers to why the complaints are only 16 or 9 or 25, because to me that number is arbitrary if we continue to hear people that are hesitant to submit a complaint. So I think what an important comment that I'm going to force you to make, but I know you willingly made it earlier, Chief Whipple, is retribution from making complaints. Can you just talk about how this feedback tool is essential to understanding the quality of service that our police department is delivering to its residents?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've never gone after anybody for making a complaint. So there's never been, there used to be a statement on here that says that under penalty of perjury, that you swear that this is accurate and truthful. We have never gone after somebody for not saying that, for doing that. What we're looking for is honest and truthful information. We really want people to give us truthful. We don't want people to be, vindictive after the officer. We want to know what really happened. What we don't want to happen, in which is a lot of the complaints that we do receive, are people that are not, that I would say, that weren't treated disrespectfully, or they weren't their rights weren't violated, but they are upset with the outcome of what happened. They are upset that they received a speeding ticket, or they were upset that they were arrested. It's not that the officer treated them badly. Some of them, the officers were extremely respectful, and like I'm looking at this and like, wow, this would be a great training video for somebody, because somebody was highly agitated, they de-escalated them, but the person's very upset with the outcome. And other times we get something and the person, the officer did a very bad job and did not de-escalate anything, and then then it's like, holy crap, this guy needs some training, and he gets in trouble for it. So we get the both spectrums, but what these forms are for, if you feel that you were disrespected, if your rights were violated, if you feel something does not feel right, we want to know about it. We can't fix it if we don't know about it. If it's a policy, the officer could have been following policy. It could be our fault. It could be the department's fault for not training him correctly. We need to know so it doesn't happen to somebody else. If he's using the wrong language, we want to know about that. Again, we don't know if we don't know, but so we want to make it right. But we need to know about it. But we don't want the retribution just because you're upset with the outcome.
So I just want to make sure, because you mentioned policy a couple times, and if I'm understanding it correctly, and I just want to make sure that an officer could have followed policy, you get a complaint, and he didn't act against policy, but you could then recognize the policy is the problem.
Yes. And then at that point, we recognize that the policy is the problem, and we have to change the policy. Yes.
And when policy is updated within the police department, is that just like it's changed online, or what is that process?
So the process, it gets changed. It gets changed, then our policy gets updated. The date that it's updated, it gets pushed out to every single officer, and every officer has to acknowledge that they received it. And we have an app called Whipple, and every single officer has to acknowledge that they received it, and then a training gets pushed out to like the questions on it, so that they have to acknowledge that they received it, and then they have to do a training on it, so that they know that the policy's been updated.
Follow-up question. How often does the public get told what policies there are for the police department, and how many things have changed since the last time they saw it?
So the policies are on the website. Every one of our policies on the website. However, I don't know the last time they were updated, because the website was just changed over, I think, like a month ago or 2 months ago maybe. And our policies, I've actually updated probably like 10 or 12 in the last month. So those are not up there yet. So but they will be up there.
Follow up.
Yes. Yes.
Love follow-up.
I would say probably monthly. I'll make sure that they're up there. Like IT puts them up there for us, so we have to get with him to actually push them through. But by monthly, they'll be up there. But everyone can see them. They can read through all of our policies. Yeah, we actually did that during reform and convention for the police department.
Oh yeah, no, I do remember
yes.
the reform
All
and reinvention.
Yes, all policies were part
I
of.
don't know that
were part
today's
of
got
it.
enough time for me to talk about the reform and reinvention.
All that come out of that.
I want to hold on that one.
Then, just a quick plug, if you are questioning the integrity or authority that resides in the Civilian Police Review Board, sincerely, you can be that difference maker. They do have some pushback powers that they use on occasion, but that board could always use volunteers. And I think that's what we noticed is lacking in a lot of our committees throughout the city, just a lack of people who are interested in giving their time. So sincerely, as we appreciate all of you being here today, if you have a bit more that you can give or are interested in giving to make a difference, that is one board that could use your experience and this willingness to be a part of the change.
And I would just add, it's only able to push back now because we fought so hard to make sure that there was that transparency and accountability, because when I was on the CPRB, everything was redacted. You couldn't see anything. The former chief walked in, said, here's my report, and that was it. And so there wasn't a sense of power or agency to create change. And because we were able to change some state laws, it gave some hope and transparency. And I hope that we continue to push and look more like Albany does, that has its own independent funding line for the CPRB that has investigatory powers, that would move us further along what true accountability looks like in a checks and balance system. But we do need folks that are willing to be in the room in every committee across the city, across the county, including the school board, city council, committees, because if we're not there in the room, whoever is in the room is who gets to make the decision.
And what I love about this space and about my sister Jamaica is we don't have to agree on everything, and then that is one point that we don't, but what our commonality interest is that we care about our community. So I think if we can have that baseline understanding, we can figure out all the nuances and get to a place where we can mutually agree to disagree, or find where we can shift so that we're accommodating each other's interests.
What was the third thing? Because we did ICE, we did accountability.
Pedestrian safety, I imagine people would love to hear your comments about noise.
And there's also going to be Q&A, so don't feel like you have to cover everything, because trust me, there's gonna be some folks that have some questions that will just bring us right back to some things we already talked about.
So noise.
Pedestrian safety and noise.
I will go with aggressive noise, because that's a very big topic for us as well. More of the parties or more of vehicles? What's the hot topic? Vehicles.
I was gonna say, it depends on who you ask and who's in the room.
Okay. So the vehicles is one of the hardest things to do because an officer actually has to be present in order to hear and in order to give a citation. So it's a violation, it's a traffic, so an officer has to be present in order to write the citation for it. Typically, you can also write them with a citation city ordinance as well. If it's heard over 50 feet long, over 50 feet away, then they can be issued a citation from the city. We do have a new appearance ticket system that was recently enacted, so it makes it a little bit quicker to do the city ordinance. But it is a very hard thing to do just to get our officers out there in order to do it. We're usually going call to call to call. Last year we answered 90,000 calls, and unfortunately it's a lower priority. I know it's not a lower priority. It's a quality of life issue that's very important to a lot of people, and it is important. But the life safety issue comes first, and then those issues do come in. We have a traffic unit in Schenectady. There's, depending on the day, we have 3 officers on days, 2 on afternoons, and 1 overnight that are out there writing tickets and doing the traffic things. So if there's a continual issue with it, if it's the same person that's doing it over and over again, then that is great for us, because you can let us know. I talked to Council President Williams, and he's going to share with his former traffic division's information, an email address and a phone number, that if you could share that area specifically, we can put somebody on it. If it's an area in general, that makes it very hard, and it happens all over the place. It's eventually we will do our best to get there, but I can't promise anything because it's very hard, and it's the same problem everywhere. The speeders are a little bit easier because we have speed cameras and trailers, and we can get analytics, and then we can control our resources a little bit better. But with the noise, it's very difficult.
And I think an important designation though is if you call and you don't see an immediate response, it doesn't mean your call is frivolous. Sincerely, Chief Whipple was talking about data-driven policing, and it's how do we become more efficient with the resources that we have. That allows for him to start identifying those trends and then increasing patrols. So every call truly makes a difference, whether you see that outcome or not. That's why it's important to make sure you're either picking up that emergency line when it is an emergent issue, or that non-emergency phone number, and highlighting this issue that you're experiencing.
I can share this quickly. I haven't told you guys. This is the first. This is really cool stuff. I think it's going away. This is we created a new dashboard now, so we'll be able to figure out. We have the call from the caller experience and the officer experience. So from the time the call gets dispatched to the time an officer arrives, we can now track that for all of our call types. And from the time that somebody calls to the time we arrive, we can start tracking that. It's a new dashboard that we just developed over the last month, so we're still fine tuning it, but we've never had that data ever, so we've never been able to do this. I don't know why we haven't done it, but we finally built it out. So now we can actually see how long it's taking us. Before we said, you know, it took us a long time, and this is going to be a huge help. So people will be able to look to see how long it's actually taking us, and now give us an improvement. So we'll have a benchmark. So if something's taking us 10 minutes, and now we can work to lower it, or if something's taking us an hour, now we can start lowering it, and we can start giving ourselves a goal, and we can start moving. But before we never had an actual number where we can start working on it. So now we have a baseline we're working on getting over the next month or two, and then we'll be able to start setting goals for ourselves and the officers, and start being able to hold people accountable for why we're not improving.
So, just kind of to say the quiet part out loud, the thing that the police officers are able to do with these quality of life issues, whether it's noise or something else, they're writing a ticket and there's a fine usually for an individual to say, hey, you did a bad thing, don't do it again. And that's it, right? Like, it's, if the officer gets there in time, if he sees who did the noise, that person gets a ticket, that's over. I had briefly mentioned to you the other day when we were on the phone and we haven't had a chance to talk further, there is another solution other than just calling the police. So all of us has something called the Community Conflict Resolution Unit. Information's on the table that if you have an ongoing or persistent issue in your neighborhood that is a conflict with someone else in your neighborhood, we do mediation. So if your neighbor is playing your music really, really loud, and I can say personally that I've had neighbors play the music really loud, and I don't call the police, folks know that. I went over and had that conversation, and I know it's something that not everyone can do. Either you don't feel comfortable, you don't know your neighbors well enough, but it is a program that we offer that if you have a conflict in your neighborhood, you can reach out to us to help mediate that issue. Because one of the concerns we have as an organization is that the ticket and the fine doesn't change the behavior. And that folks who go speeding down the street, like on Becker Street over in my neighborhood, they're not going 25, they're not going 35, sometimes they're going 50 miles an hour with that straightaway that we've asked the mayor to change. They get fines and they keep speeding. And so having that community conversation and looking for opportunities to say, hey, if a certain neighborhood has an ongoing noise situation, how can we facilitate community conversations to talk about why they shouldn't? And for neighbors to be good neighbors, other than just, you'll get a fine if you don't do this thing. But can we build community to actually come together and say, hey, listen, I've got kids that need to go to sleep because they're getting up in the morning, which is exactly what I said to my neighbors. I'm like, it's Thursday, they got school on Friday, it's 10 o'clock, I appreciate you're having a good time, can you turn it down a little bit? They look shocked, they turned it down. We want to be able to continue to do that and find opportunities. So is the dashboard, my question to you, is that dashboard going to be something that is public? Because while you're targeting where your officers may be patrolling, there's a community organization that targets communities to build community.
Yeah, so this dashboard doesn't give location. This just gives us call response time. So this one isn't. So we have like the patrol finder gives that, I think, is 24 hours delayed. I think that's up there, and that gives locations like general areas. But that does not, but the dashboard that I'm talking about does not give any areas. It just gives from the time of call, but it gives a number from the time of call to the time we respond there. If there is some way that the community is willing to come together in different areas or locations, you know, even community meetings like this, forums like this, and you can get a group of people. I would be happy to join in. I'll also be interested if we can get people to be more civil with each other. That would be that our call volume would be down significantly. Our overnights from 9 o'clock to like 2 o'clock in the morning and we generate a lot of calls, loud music from people being disrespectful to each other. That's a lot of fights start, a lot of neighbor trouble start. A lot of complaints come to us because of the neighbors. Then we get calls. Officers aren't coming, officers aren't there. Where are the officers? If there's a forum or a way that we can get people to come together somehow that I can help to be part of that, I am all for it, because that's the.
I am here to lower your calls, sir.
I am
I am here to lower your calls.
Count me in, because that's the, man, that would be something. If we could do that,
I love that
count me in.
And I think it's the recognition that we can't just call 911 and expect them to fix all of our troubles and concerns, because people forget that police officers are people too, and they're human, they're not robots. So as they're trying to respond between our interpersonal concerns, they can't replace our inability to talk to each other and have that candid conversation of, like, I'm tired. Like, do you hear me? So hearing of the organization, I think Jamaica and I talked about this before, and hearing the interest in partnering with that, the recognition is our budget is $120 million and growing exponentially higher, and we can't continue to prop it up because of our inabilities as a community to come together and do the work. So I appreciate that, and I guarantee you Jamaica's going to take that next thing with her.
I'm sure she will.
But I know one of the priorities for you, as it always is for me and Carl, is making sure that folks in the room have a chance to ask the question, whether it's a follow-up to what we already talked about, is there something we didn't already talk about that you have a question about, for any one of us. Yes, Chief's in the hot seat. But also, Carl and I always welcome any question that you have that one of us can answer, because the three of us sit up here with different levels of knowledge, understanding, perspective, and influence, and our ability to see what's happening in this city and across the greater capital region, because Schenectady isn't just the residents who live here, it's the people that work here, the folks that come to Proctor's to hang out, to go to shows. So this is your time to shine. If you have a question, comment, concern that you want to share, I will do my best. I will do my best to keep stack. Now, here's a little something some folks in the room may not understand about me, and I'm just going to be real blunt about it. I know that in the world that we live in, there are some people that get the chance to be heard every single day. I try to make sure that voices we typically don't hear from get heard. So if you feel as if your hand went up first or before somebody else and I didn't call on you first, it might have been on purpose, and I just need you to be okay with it. The goal is to get to everyone, but to also make sure that folks that typically aren't heard, that they get a chance. So everybody put your hands back up again. I'm going to the woman in the back, and then the woman in the front. I do know some of your names, I'm just being that way. And then I'm gonna slide to my left. I ask that you, if you're comfortable saying your first name, and just speak loud enough so we can hear your question, comment, or concern.
Good evening. Thanks for meeting with us tonight. And I just wanted to ask about a concern that's happening in Troy with their cameras. And it was brought up to me, it was just mentioned that Schenectady has this contract with these cameras. It was a good deal, but it's a concern about what data is being picked up with these cameras and how it's being used, and I don't even know if you would have any information on that.
Yeah, so we do not have Flock, but we do have Axon. So our data is housed by us. So she's talking about the LPR cameras. So we do have LPRs. They do not track people. There's, oh sorry.
LPR stands
License
for-
plate readers. So license plate readers. Sorry. So we do have we do have license plate readers in the city. We own the data here in Schenectady. It's stored for 30 days, and it cannot track your movements. So we're not tracking the movements from everybody. So that's one of the things where people think that we're tracking your location from location. It takes a picture of the back of your vehicle with a license plate, and then we can later on use it to search for your vehicle. So if we're trying to find your vehicle specifically, we type in the license plate, and we can find where you have been within the city for the last 30 days.
After 30 days, it disappears?
It disappears. Yep. After 30 days, it's gone, and we house that data. We own it.
I would just follow up, even though the license plate reader is one type of camera, there are other cameras just in general in the city that the department does use to track movement based on suspicion or looking for someone.
So there's a county-city partnership that the county technically owns. The city partners with them. I do not know how long those go for. I'm guessing probably about 30 days as well. Those are also non-tracking, but there are cameras throughout the city. The county's very open on talking about those because there's usually hear about those at all the different speeches. That those are, I know there's several downtown. There's several of those throughout the city as well, but they are not. You can't search those for anything specific. You can't search for a person. We have no facial recognition or anything like that. But those are used to search for past crimes and things like that. But there's no tracking capabilities to track.
Thank you.
Can I just do a follow-up? Are there any plans in the future to deal with flop cameras?
There's not, no. Nope.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Shabina. You guys talk about music. Do you have a time that you are allowed to play it loud in your house? I do love music. Do you have a time to start it, or like we go to 11:30 in the night and then you gotta turn it down? When does it become a disturbance? Because music is a relaxation.
So I do love music as well, but the city ordinance is written that any time that it's the hindrance to the neighbors or anyone else, that it can be, that's too loud. So if anybody can hear you over 50 feet, then it's considered too loud.
Regardless of time
Regardless
of
of time of day.
Day.
Yes. So any time. So the thing is, if your neighbors are okay with it,
I don't let my neighbor play the music.
then if they're okay with it and they're not gonna call, then it's okay. But if the neighbors call, then it's something that can generate a call and it would be not okay.
Is there a follow-up?
There are quiet hours, so it's 10 o'clock, and I believe, and don't quote me, but I believe it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So
Quiet hours?
or where it's asking you to be more considerate at those times.
Can you repeat back the time, please?
10 p.m.
10
to
p.m.
maybe 8 o'clock in the morning.
I will get back. I'll get back to you on that. I'll get back.
We're gonna follow up.
So,
Yes, so I think there's a follow-up question regarding noise or a separate question.
Different question.
So hold 1 second, we'll come over here and then we'll come back around.
I'm gonna rapid fire 3 questions and you can just do it like that. How would the police department respond to someone if they call about ICE being in the area and they're concerned about it? What's being done to recruit a more diverse workforce in the police department? And then you talked about Northern Rivers, and I'd like to just hear more about how the police will respond when it's a mental health issue. Like police respond and realize when they get there it's a mental health issue, and are they being trained to identify?
Okay. So with ICE, if somebody calls and says ICE is there, we aren't doing anything. We're not doing anything. So if somebody called us and said ICE is in the neighborhood, there's no reason for us to go. We're not going either way.
So call all of us was a short answer. So call all of us and say that ICE is in the neighborhood and we'll come out.
If there's a large crowd gathering anywhere, and there was a disturbance, or if somebody was starting to cause an issue, like a safety hazard, then we respond to a safety hazard. But if there's no safety hazard, we're not going. There's no reason for us to go for anything. I just lost it. What was that? Diversity. So that's always a very tough question. We opened the city list first now for the last 2 years. We take anyone that's lives in the city first. So we have 2 separate lists. If you live in the city, we canvass that first before we canvass anybody outside the city. So typically we've been 10 to 12 people that take our test lives in the city. We canvass anybody that's on the list first. So if somebody lives in the city has an 80 and somebody lives outside the city gets 100, the 80 would be higher over the 100. So that's been helping us a little bit on the diversity scale. We opened up the list for education requirements. So there are no college credits required. So anybody who's over at least 21 years old can sign up. So actually you can sign up and take the test at 20, but you, when you're out of the academy, there's a certain few months you have to be 21. So you can actually be a little younger, and they open it up to be a little bit older. I think now you can be up to, I'm not sure, it's 38 or 42. I know it's at least 38. So the age expansion, so we can get a little bit younger, a little bit older. And for the last one, the Northern Rivers. So right now they were in Schenectady before, and they moved to Albany, but then now they're moving into our basement of the police station. They'll have co-responders. So what they're going to do is, once we go out to somebody for a mental health call, we're going to go out there, and if the scene, once we deem that it's more or less safe, and that we realize that it's a mental health call, then we're actually going to leave, and they're going to handle the call. They'll stay with the patient, and we'll be able to leave. They'll be able to handle, walk through, and they'll do all the follow-up and the case management afterwards. So, and if they, in the shortish term, if they feel safe and they get the call from dispatcher, if they know the person, they've been dealing with that person, they know that there's no real safety concerns, and they'll be able to go without us even going. That's once they develop their rapport, they'll get the information, and we will bother going. But if there's a safety concern, if the person is making threats or anything, then they won't go without us being present, but they'll go side by side with us, and then once they say all is clear, we leave and they stay.
And what about the situation where it's not absolutely clear that it's a mental health issue until they get there? So Northern Rivers hasn't come with them. How are they trained to identify and then address?
So we have mental health training we get at the academy, and then we have we have VR training that helps us to identify some mental health, and then we get de-escalation training, but I'm not sure what other training as far as specifically I would be able to speak to.
I would just add that over on the table is a bunch of resources for mental health support, because we have the ability to reach out to other resources instead of calling the police. Yes, my goal is we don't need to call them for every single thing. Let's find those other options for phone calls, and to be proactive for our friends, for our family, and that 911 isn't always the best number to call depending on what the purpose is. But again, it's a culture shift. It's a change in our way of thinking and our response, because I believe that we are told as a community, if you have an emergency, whatever that emergency is, you call 911, and a call to 911 gets us a police response, regardless of what we said on the phone. So we also have to have that community conversation about how are we responding to the needs of the members in our community when they need help.
And then if I can add to that, one part that the chief didn't mention is we have the community police hiring panel, which has been,
Go for it.
Has been an integral component in being a further line of reviewing, a part of that interview process for incoming applicants. I can tell you I was a part of that. I know Councilman Chairs in the back was a part of that prior to him being appointed. But sincerely, that group that's been led by Will Rivas, this was his idea, has had the ability to provide a stamp of approval or provide some additional comments that have been truly taken into consideration and have been the deciding factor of whether someone met the criteria that the community designated for someone to wear the uniform in the city, because it is an expectation. And those have been really, really considered and influential. So that is another board or panel that you can provide your time and effort, and that makes a difference, sincerely does.
I think that we're going to go here. You've been waiting patiently. I so appreciate you. Folks who are still waiting to ask questions, please raise your hands now. Of course, there's more of you. God bless you. I'm going to go with the gentleman here, the gentleman over here, and Kayla, because I know your name.
All right, what are we doing about the battery bikes? Those bicycles that are on the road. I got cut off by one, almost hit them. And if I hit them, it's my fault. If they hit me, who's paying for my car? The parent should be liable if the kid's underage.
Yes, and some of the parents will be liable depending on their age.
There's a lot of them, you know, I seen golf carts on State Street. Your guys go right by them, didn't even stop them. Now that's crazy. But if we hit one, right there, now I ride a bike. If I took the plates off my bike and you stop me, you're gonna say what? Where's the plates?
Where's the plates?
And I'm getting a ticket. There's no plates on them bikes, no inspection, and no helmets.
So I think what we're talking about is and correct me if I'm wrong, and other folks in the room I know have additional information, there are motorized bicycles
Yep.
that are different than motorcycles,
Yep,
that are different than mopeds,
yep.
and that there's laws that regulate which need a license plate, who needs a helmet, and how they're supposed to operate within our city. And then I know there's some folks in the room that have some serious opinions and thoughts about how our streets are designed to allow for safety for everyone, including those on the motorized bikes or pedestrians walking, because your vehicle holds a lot more weight and damage.
Yeah, but that's true. But they don't have no insurance. Them bikes ain't even inspected. There might be something wrong with that bike.
I feel like this is one of those you gotta call Kathy Hochul moments.
And I'm only
Because
saying.
there's state law, there's local law that makes decisions about how things are governed, and go ahead, Chief.
No, so I agree with you on everything you're saying. I don't disagree. I understand the frustration. We've taken 3 or 4 of them off the road in the last week and a half, but
Yeah.
I know it doesn't put a dent in them.
Right.
Schenectady is a smaller city that's dealing with the same problem that we're all dealing with. We're getting, I can't remember if there's an organization, I can't remember which one it was, just putting out a pamphlet. They're coming out with ways
Yeah.
to start dealing with these. But yes, there are, if it's over a certain weight, if the bike's over a certain weight, it can't go on a road that's over 30 miles per hour without the proper registration. If it's under a certain weight and the bike can't go over 30 miles per hour, then it's legally allowed in certain areas. There's so many regulations and rules on
Yeah.
there, but a lot of times the people that are riding the bike are not following the rules that they're supposed to
No,
be
that's
following
for sure.
when they're let them ride in groups and ride out in the middle of the road and swerve in and out. And then when we try to stop them, they take off. and
They
create
step on
more
it and they
hazard.
go.
So
And they go on side streets or alleyways, you guys can't get them.
a lot of times when we try to interdict with them, they take off and
Yep.
it's gonna create more of a hazard for us
Yeah.
than it does just to see them another day.
I know years ago they had mini bikes on the road, and as we got stopped with that, they took the bike.
We still do, if we catch whoever's on them, we do take the bikes.
Oh, they still do it.
We still do, yes, I said we have them now, we took some.
That's
and
good.
Yes, we do take them,
And I think
But
there
you don't
might-
want the problem Albany had. Hitting that girl,
yes. You always,
that was bad.
that is very terrible.
So I think we also have like some follow-up to your question, and I did see you, John, but just because I know there might be a follow-up question. If there's a follow-up question as it relates to bikes in our streets or the pedestrian conversation that we've been having, I just want to leave space for that now if anyone has, I'll start here.
Well, mine is not about bikes, but it's about pedestrian safety
Okay.
in general. Thank you for being here, and thank you for hosting this, because this is really fortuitous, because we have the lawmaker and the law enforcement here at the exact same time, which is great. According to New York State, to the Department of Transportation, in order to ensure pedestrian safety, you have to have the 3 E's, which is so great that they came up with this. It's so simple. You have to have education, enforcement, and engineering. And what I'm hearing tonight and what I hear consistently from folks in our community is that our engineering, our enforcement, our methods of enforcement, and our methods of reaching out to people to educate them are not meeting the moment. They're antiquated. They're not working. In terms of the number of distinct vehicles and modes of transportation we have on our roads and on our sidewalks now, it's a lot. And we're all trying to share the same space, and the same space is often not engineered to have all of us in the same space. Our methods of education. Enforcement, I don't think, is really working as a form of education because people get tickets and then they just keep repeating the same behavior. And in terms of enforcement in our city, I think there's a real dearth of enforcement. I walk across Erie Boulevard on State Street every day, multiple times per day, and I count how many vehicles I see blowing through that red light in that intersection. The number is freaking shocking, but no one in this room would be surprised if you've been anywhere near that intersection. I don't know if ticketing cameras are the answer to that problem. I don't know if traditional, just putting a cop out there in a vehicle and pulling people over left and right. I mean, I see so many problems with the traditional methods of enforcement, so I don't want to talk too long, but would you consider being part of some sort of, could we create some sort of committee consisting of a member of the council, a member of law enforcement, and community organizations to try to put our heads together to figure out how we can make our laws, engineer our streets, and educate and reach people that is actually meeting the moment and applies to our specific situation?
I'm in. So, I mean, are you saying the city as a whole or a certain area? I mean,
the city as a whole, because I think there's unique problems everywhere. One of the problems that applies everywhere is access to information. I have no idea how many people are actually on foot are actually struck by vehicles. And when I ask, I don't get clear answers. And that information seems to be privileged in our city. And personally, I feel, as a taxpayer, if I ask for it, I should just get it. I feel entitled to that information, and I don't hesitate to say that. We have an inventory in our city of trees, of municipal trees. Surely we can have an inventory annually of how many people are struck by vehicles and put it on a map, interactive. I should be able to see. There's a countywide study that was done to redesign Exit 4C over by Washington Avenue. There was a firm that the county paid to harvest this information for them of how many accidents occur there because they wanted to kind of sell it to people if this is a good idea to redesign it. There's a lot of people who were struck by vehicles at that intersection on State and Washington Ave. How come and if you take that as like an indicator of how many people are actually struck across the whole city, that number is unknown to me, but I don't think we can address the problem if we don't know the whole elephant, if we can't see the whole thing. And I feel like the public should know, because how can I educate myself and my community about best practices as a pedestrian or as a cyclist if I don't know where these problems occur? We need to look at patterns. So. I'm sorry, I talked a lot at you.
No, but that's the point, right? We don't always have a question. It's more of our thoughts, of our concerns, and it doesn't have to be a direct question that you're looking for an answer today. Because no, I'm going to speak for all of us up here. We don't have that answer today.
No.
Right? I did that.
The pedestrian hit is an easy answer.
Okay.
I mean, I can get that very quickly.
Okay.
Something we have to put together, so we get a grant every year for governor's traffic safety.
Okay.
And we have to compile that.
Okay.
And so that's something that is public, and our documents are all public.
Okay.
So I don't know why somebody just doesn't give that to you if you ask for it. I don't know, maybe.
Who do I have to ask?
So it's our traffic department has it.
Okay.
They may not have, maybe just got funneled to the wrong person, but I used to be, 4 or 5 years ago, I was going to put it together, and I would share with anybody because it's just an easy number.
Okay.
We have to put together how many pedestrians were hit and how many pedestrians were fatal. So we have both of those. I wouldn't have location easily, like it's not plotted out anywhere. I just have the numbers, unfortunately. But that's something, luckily it's not a huge number, so it would be hard to put it in somewhere, but that's not something we readily have available, but the numbers vary. It's luckily a low number.
Yeah.
So
well, that's good that it's a lower number, but it doesn't account for the near misses.
Yeah, it does
Right,
not come.
yeah.
I'm hard to miss, but I've been part of several near misses.
Right, and not everything is a call. Not everything is, even with pedestrian accidents, not everything is reported.
Yeah.
There are folks that get hit by cars and don't call and say, I got hit by a car. They keep going. So yes, we know it's an issue. So I wanna, cause my timekeeper came and gave me a time check.
So I do want to say 10 seconds. Sincerely though, it is a culture shift that Jamaica was highlighting before. We lowered the speed limit 5 miles an hour. I've yet to find someone to say thank you. Every day I get, why would you do that? Why are you inconveniencing me? Why is this 5 miles per hour really make a difference? And it does. That is why every municipality since us has adopted it. It is a no-brainer. Sincerely, we have to look at these vehicles we're operating. They can do more technologically than ever before. My car is pretty much a computer, and it's a big screen and it takes up so much of our attention. That 5% provides more of a stopping distance, so those near misses were previously accidents. We are working towards the right direction, but I agree, those 3 E's are a difference, but I do need to highlight our chief engineer, who is a truly single personnel shop, is doing a lot. We can be more intentional with the paving schedules moving forward to create more space, but that is happening. It's just on the scale of a municipal level, it is not. So we can be doing better, we can.
And that we can collect and share again all of the streets that have not received the same attention. Becker, where folks go flying down the street, and it is a street that is surrounded by an elementary school, actually 2 elementary schools, a middle school, and it's a straightaway that folks go flying by that we've been talking about for years. John.
All right, thank you. So my question is more about, you were talking about the types of training that law enforcement receives in the city. Do you guys have any type of training with behavioral threat assessment and management when there are specific targeted attacks that are threatened, or people are talking about planning, whether it's schools, institutions? Do you guys receive any of that training, and do you guys have any type of council or group that deals with those threats specifically?
So there's a county threat assessment team that we're part of. That's I can't remember the name of that is, but there's a county, it's a set plan that they put together. So there is that, and then we have our regional plan. So are you talking more kind of like an active shooter type stuff, or more of like a?
Yeah, it can be that, whether, you know, because there's talks of when there's issues of guns at schools.
Yes, okay.
And things of that nature.
Yes, so we do that. Like we have a regional, so we actually typically host those. We have 1 or 2 of those a year. So I know there's one coming up next week at the Mount Pleasant Middle School. We're hosting one from the 7th to the 9th, I think. So there's been some bulletins posted so that people know that we're going to be there. So don't
Freak out.
Don't freak out. There's gonna be a lot of police in the area. It's all training. Yeah, we have officers trained in Alert 1, Alert 2. There's several different trainings that we are part of, and Rescue Task Force.
I'm very familiar with it.
Okay.
I always try to bring it up and make sure that more people are familiar with what threat assessment is and what law enforcement is doing in order to, you know, take in that information and deal with it. Because sometimes people feel like when they hear that somebody's been caught with a gun or that there's been threats made, they think that nothing is really happening behind the scenes when there really is.
Oh, yes.
So I'm sorry, maybe I should have better phrased my question. I apologize.
Nothing, yes, and then we do tabletop exercises. So every supervisor, when they first become a supervisor, they have to do a large scale tabletop exercise at the academy so that they understand what it's like to run like a bigger scene. We work with the hospitals, we work with different agencies. So I actually used to run some of the leadership training there to run out some different scenarios, and then yes, so we do that, and so we do those and alerts. But yes, we do that.
And again, I'm going to push that when we as a community actually know who our neighbors are and we talk to each other and we have conversations, we then can rely less on, I'm suspicious and I'm making a phone call and I don't necessarily have information and, ooh, they look scary, to my next door neighbor's name is John. I know he works from 9 to 5, but all of a sudden it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and he's at work, but there's somebody going in his house. And I'm calling John because I have his number. right? Or when we're inside our schools, and this has actually happened, that a student felt comfortable going to an adult to say, hey, I have a concern, because of the relationship, right? So it wasn't a phone call to somebody else. It wasn't, I saw this on Facebook or on TikTok, which we know does happen, but it's about those relationships and building community so that we're talking to each other instead of relying on, not for nothing, a third party to come and handle what could be a communication between us if we know somebody's struggling. And it comes up a lot for me in my role as a school board member and being concerned about our young people and their mental health and how they're feeling and how they're dealing with it. Do they have someone to talk to that they can trust, instead of they're bullied, they're holding it in, they're not talking about it, and then we're concerned about whether or not they're going to act out inside our buildings, which doesn't typically happen in inner cities, but it's still a conversation that we have. So every time we think about who are we calling, could it be somebody that we know, because now we know them? And then we have less of a reliance on a threat assessment or an armed force showing up in our neighborhoods, because we're building that sense of community. I want to get to Kayla, and then hands up for anyone that hasn't been heard yet, that still had questions. I'm definitely going to run out of time. I'm just going to stay in that row. So Kayla, Shaquella, Sean, yes, I know their names. Go ahead, Kayla.
I want to bring it back to ICE, and I want to bring it to a follow-up on what you said to Ellie's question about you don't respond when you get a call that ICE has completed. When you started this, you opened with saying that law and safety are your two priorities, and we have seen several instances of ICE violating due process rights. There are court cases, we've seen reports of, ICE training has gone way down, they're ignoring all of these parts about due process. Some of this could be hearsay. We've seen videos of them, even if, they have an immigrant that is here illegally, roughing them up very aggressively. So how do you reconcile that behavior that ICE has been willfully displaying in other communities with the opening statement you said about your priorities being the law and safety?
So I am not going to comment on other communities or federal agencies. I'm going to work on locally what we do here, what I can control with my agency. I can't control a federal agency, and if it's not an incident that's happening here that I can do something about, I can't.
But you don't feel that your presence in the area, if you get a call and say, hey, there is ICE here, you don't feel that even your presence in our community will be something that could benefit?
There's so many what ifs that could happen that I don't know there's so many scenarios that could take place that I just don't think that my comments are gonna do anything tonight.
Okay, well, mull it over.
Okay, I want to know, what does police engagement look like in the community, and unity in the community, and building relationships? And I also want to know, are you going to be putting officers on bikes in the community in the future?
Yeah, so I'll go backwards. So the bikes, yes. So we have regular bikes and we have electric bikes. And so we have.
Did you register them?
So we have bikes that are pedal bikes that turn into electric,
Okay.
that you can do. So we have those downtown, and then officers are able to ride up to. We have zones throughout the city. We have 8 zones plus downtown, so really 9 zones throughout the city. And officers, the electric bikes we just got last year, the year ago. Actually, they're a big hit between officers and some of the community members that they can see them. They're a little thicker than our regular bikes. But yes, they don't usually make it their way up further out in the community. Usually it's downtown. They'll see some Hamilton Hill, some Mount Pleasant, Stockade. But yes, they can go pretty fast as well.
20 miles per hour.
25-ish miles per hour. So
That's what's legal in around here, is under 28 miles per hour.
Oh, 20, okay, perfect. And then community engagement, it looks different for everyone, but what I'm expecting is for people for our officers to take time on the calls. And again, I know we're rushing from call to call to call, But to be able to sit there and actually listen to somebody and be able to take time and to learn, you know, what it is they're actually going through, and not just finish up the call and all right, see you later, I'm gone. So that way, next time if they, you know, are interacting with them again, they can, you know, they have a rapport with somebody. And one of our officers right now, he works downtown. I'm not sure if anyone knows who he is, but
See if a mustache.
yes.
Yeah, I had a long conversation with him and storied about why Timothy Chalamet keeps losing Oscars. It was great.
So he actually I started a new thing last month. It's the Chiefs Designee Award. So he got that today. So we're posting it up today. But I recently went to the mission for a 4-hour, kind of learned a little bit more about the mission and the service they have to offer, and just the stories they had about him there, and the stuff that he's doing there was just, I mean, it was unbelievable from the students there just talking about him. So I mean, he's kind of like exceptional outside. Just he's going around the amount of emails and calls that I got about him, about the stories that he's making people, and then so just be able to take your time and be able to do stuff. It's not just a one-time, one-off things. Not just, you know, throwing the ball. You know, that's just, you know, that's so 10 years ago. You know, just making a video for throwing the ball with somebody who wants to get a photo op, and that's just ridiculous. So just actually being there and, you know, meeting people and forming actual relationships with people, not just seeing it once and done.
Yeah, so I guess a question on like your data retention. You were saying like you own the data and like you store it. Like, does that mean that you're storing it on a server that is like resident here in Schenectady? Do you utilize cloud services? Do you have backups that shoot to the cloud?
It's a cloud. Yeah, we're the only ones that have access to it for the.
Okay.
It's through Axon, through evidence.com.
Okay. And then additionally, like if you're just kind of a comment, if you're willing to post your data publicly, I am willing to pull it down and plot it on a map. So anywhere there is data or, you know, civilian interactions or other issues, I'm perfectly happy to ingest public data that's just a raw data dump.
That's good. I don't know how exactly that would work, but I will get information, because I know some of it, they will, you know, there's certain, I don't know, a lot of computer talk, but there's certain things that different companies won't share, like their APIs or whatever. I don't know if I'm even saying the right stuff, but they won't talk to other things, but I'll definitely get information before I leave, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't think we expect you to be IT.
Okay. I hear just enough to know to get myself in trouble.
Heard some letters, and Carl knows how I feel about acronyms, so we're just gonna keep it pushing. We actually, we only have 5 minutes left, and one of the things that's been really important, I think Carl would agree, is that we wanna make sure folks understand what the process is after today, right? We started this conversation, everything didn't get answered. If there's a question that you are holding right now, your options are to write it down on a card, to text it to me, because everyone has my cell phone number, 518-496-0799, or you can send it to all of us. Our information's out there. There's a whole bunch of information over there, because we do want to make sure that just because it wasn't heard in this particular moment, it doesn't mean that it's gone. It doesn't mean that your question, your concern, your thoughts just all of a sudden disappeared because we ran out of time. And we recognize that and want to make sure that happens. But go ahead, Carl, tell them how we make sure that we always follow up.
So we have a spreadsheet database. Part of the value for this for me was, why am I trying to imagine what your issues or concerns are when I just have a conversation? You can tell me. So with the beginning of these conversations, it was, how do we bring forward topics or concerns that matter? And your presence here justifies that. So sincerely tonight, it supports the theme that we can accomplish more together, and that this room represents our community. Like, this is Schenectady, whether you live here, work here, worship here, or a visitor, like, your opinions and your feedback are important. But when we silo ourselves, when we shoot down the importance of vocalizing our issues and concerns in a productive and effective way, I think it pigeonholes our ability to grow collectively. And with some of the questions, it doesn't mean we're going to get everything right. That doesn't mean we're going to have all the answers, but we do it collaboratively. And one of the ways we hold ourselves accountable is by sharing that accountability with you. you're recognizing that we don't follow up on your answers, if you're recognizing that your valid question is truly not being heard, regardless of the response tonight. I'm an elected official, so chief of police right here, and you have an active activist. Do not let us off the hook.
It's true, I won't let him off the hook. We're getting the hook on the time. I do want to say that while I am super excited how incredibly diverse this room is, I also want to acknowledge, and Carl and I talked about this, there are folks that are not in this room. And they're not in this room for a lot of reasons. Chief, I'll let you know that I got a message right before our meeting started. Someone didn't feel comfortable coming because of her lived experience with police. And she said, I really wanted to be there, but I just can't, my anxiety's too high. And I know that she's not the only one. There are other members in the community that have shared. And I keep talking to y'all saying, stop making me say this. They have lived experiences that were negative, and they have no belief that folks are gonna listen to them, even though we created this space for folks to come in and to share it with you. I have a very personal story about a 14-year-old boy who was arrested for riding a bicycle. It was not a motorized bicycle. It was not a bicycle. He ended up in handcuffs, and this family confided in me and don't feel comfortable, right? And while I can appreciate that we created this space here, how can we find additional pathways? It's great that the NAACP can fill it out. Us having whatever that link is to find the papers online, is it digital or is it still a hard copy that people have to print out? No, the mayor's office is not good enough for people to go. We still have huge barriers because of a long history inside this city that predates you by a lot. And I want to acknowledge that there are people that should be in this room that would have some much harder stories to share, but they didn't feel comfortable being here. And to Carl's point, I'm still gonna be that person that says those things that, hey, they won't say it, but I'm gonna say it to you, whether folks believe me or not, because they deserve that. And that we have to make sure that every single interaction that happens with police allows for every person to feel as if they remained dignified and they were not dehumanized in that interaction. And we don't have that 100% right now. So I look forward to whatever policy changes are, or the opportunities for us to steer some of those quality of life issues outside of your officers, so that we can be a stronger community together, and that this is not the only conversation that we have, and that someday those folks that didn't show up today do feel comfortable coming and sharing it directly with you. But I appreciate that you did come here with no hesitation. When it was Jamaica Miles wants to have a conversation with the police chief, you just went, okay. I said, word, all right. So I do appreciate that, because we know that change doesn't happen when we're quiet. And so thank you for being here. And to my brother Carl, because I think brother Carl, we're just gonna keep doing this, every single one. So if you're not on the email list, please add yourself to the email list outside the door. Check any information that's on the table. There are whistle packets. That's a longer conversation, but y'all gotta be out of here by 8 o'clock because the library is gonna close and they ain't gonna let us stay. But thank you all for being here.